It's truly a privilege to be here. I was a graduate from 1992 of the Andrews School. It was all girls at the time, but it was a wonderful experience for me, and I'm really honored to be back here to be the chair of the board of Andrews Osborne Academy. Today, I'll just talk about, my topic is really about being resilient and independent. And really what I'm going to talk about is the story of how I came to Andrews, a little bit of my family background, a little bit to a degree about my career and how I ultimately became chair of the board. It's been a journey, and it's been a challenging journey, but a great journey in and of itself. I'm one of the three children, youngest in my family. My parents were from India. They moved here probably in the late 50s, 60s at that point in time. I'm one of the youngest of three kids, and so my dad was a doctor on the west side of Cleveland, and my mom was a homemaker. You know, they were first generation when they came here, and they didn't really have a support system whatsoever. But they learned how to acclimate to the country. And me being the youngest, my sister's 11 years older and my brother's 9 years older than me. So by the time I came around, I was kind of on my own for the most part, because my brother and sister were already in college by the time I was in kindergarten and in first grade. So, you know, my dad was working a lot. My mom, as I said, was a homemaker, and this is really kind of putting a lot out there for myself, but my mom had a lot of mental issues and medical issues. And, you know, my dad didn't, you know, while he was a doctor, he didn't know how to really kind of balance all of that out. So with him working, my mom having her thing, and being in India a lot as well to take care of herself, I was kind of home alone a lot. I was a latchkey kid. I don't know if anybody knows what that really means, but I literally had, my mom crocheted a necklace for me, and I had a key at the end of the necklace, and that would let me into my house when I was done with school. So, you know, I'd come home from school and eat my cookies, watch cartoons, did my homework, did my own thing. But that's where I learned how to be kind of like independent and doing my own thing. But ultimately, you know, my dad, he was probably, by the time I was into the 8th or 9th grade, right before I came here, he was already in his 60s at that point, and he was done working. And he needed to know that he had to take care of my mom as well. So, you know, he's like, oh, what do we do with Asha? And he knew I could take care of myself, but I was also a kid at the same time. So we actually looked at schools in India, and I was in 6th grade at the time. And we went to one school in southern India where my family was from, and then a school in northern India. And it was kind of funny, the school that we went to in northern India, my dad and I went there, and the head of school at the time said, you can leave her right now. And I was just in 6th grade, and I'm like looking at my dad, starting to cry a little bit, and that always got to him pretty easily. I'm like, you can't leave me here. So ultimately, you know, a couple of years passed, and he did not, you know, take me there, thank goodness, because I was raised here in America. I couldn't really acclimate to the culture in India whatsoever, and I knew that. But I had the courage at that point in time to say, I can't be here. So a few years passed by, so like in 88, 89, you know, we looked at schools in Northeast Ohio, and ultimately I was going to go to boarding school because my dad was retiring and wanted to move back to India to take care of my mom. And so, you know, we looked at Gilmore, we looked at Western Reserve, and then Andrews. And I was bullied a lot in school. I was in the Westlake school system. And though, you know, in negative talk about Westlake school system, I did well there. And I also went to Lake Ridge as well. But ultimately, you know, I decided between the three schools. And I just really felt like when I toured the campus here, I was like, okay, this should be the right place for me. And I knew I probably wouldn't get bullied either. So I came to Andrews, and the first day that I was here, you know, we had a dinner, and it was like saying goodbye to our parents and everything. And I was like, wham, wow, this is the first time I'm in 9th grade and I'm going to be on my own. even though I had, I had to learn to be in a support system and whatnot, but I was away from my parents. I wasn't totally close with my parents, but over time we became very close. But, they were culturally very different from me. But, they're like, okay, you're off on your own now. So that was while I was a latchkey kid, I also became very independent when I came to this school. I had to learn how to take care of myself. I had a support system here, but I really had to learn how to be resilient and independent without my parents. So, the greatest thing about this school is that I learned to acclimate to another family. I had a second family, and that family was my friends that I'm still, we see each other on Facebook virtually and so forth, but we're still very connected here. And my teachers, I have strong connections to both of my math, at least one of my math teachers, Matt, and, my other math teacher, Neil, and I can call them by their first names now, although it's taken me 35 years to actually do that. But, they were really the individuals that really, kind of built that framework for me to have a career that I have now, and also my history teachers as well, too. So, it's those individuals that really help shape me. I don't know if I have, specific experiences of the school. It's more the love of the school that I have. I do remember when my parents left and I started crying a little bit, and a couple of the kids from they actually just started here as well too. They just came up to me and said, "Hey, you're part of the family now. You're welcomed here," and it was great. It was one of those things that I really cherished. And my parents actually, at one point, my dad wanted to pull me out of the school, and it was probably my 9th grade year. They wanted me to be closer to where my sister and brother were. They were actually in DC, and I was actually really kind of scared of my dad, even though he's one of my fondest, he's one of the greatest people that I know or did know. He's passed away now, but he's like, we're going to go look at schools on the East Coast, specifically in the DC area. And, I really didn't want to leave Andrews at all. I didn't want to change things up again. And, my father was, again, I was really kind of, not to, negative talk about him, but I was scared to tell him. I was like, I had to get the courage to say, hey, I actually want to stay here. And I got the support from my friends and my teachers, and ultimately I was able to stay here. So I was here for 4 years. I loved every moment of Andrews, now Andrews Osborne Academy. And, please know that the school that you're at is really special. While it's changed, we've gone from a girls' school to a co-ed school, pre-K through all the way to post-grad. When I was here, it was 7th through 12th grade. These walls and the teachers that you have are really supportive of you and what you want to be as you move forward in your life. So really cherish that, and cherish the people that are your peers, because you will have them in your life going forward. So that's a little bit of my experience here, how I came here. As Larry stated, I've been in banking for 25 years. I'm aging myself a little bit now. I still feel like I'm like that kid who came to Andrews as a 14, 15-year-old. But, I've had a good journey at Andrews, but also working. So I've worked at National City, PNC, and now KeyBank. I would say some of the experiences that I had at Andrews, taking math classes and so forth, I never thought I would actually be auditing areas that were very finance, math oriented. I do have an MBA, but they're very, I oversee the treasury and models areas from a third line of defense at KeyBank, and it's really complicated subjects areas. So I think some of the background that I have from Andrews and from Ohio Wesleyan and Case Western have really helped me in my career. So I've evolved in my career, and I enjoy what I do. I work with a diverse group of individuals, and I've been very fortunate to have that career. The funny thing is, and this is my last comment, is that how I became chair of the board. It's nothing, overly, profound or anything, but it's, I'm single. I've never been married. But I've interacted with, various individuals and men in my life that have been really supportive or have not necessarily been, and so forth. But I did interact with somebody a few years ago who was on a board of another private high school here in the area and said to me, hey, oh, you went to Andrews. I can get you on the board if you ever want to be on the board. I'm like, because he actually worked on the merger of Phillips Osborne and the Andrews School. And I'm like, I don't need your help on that. So, and I had another person who said, hey, you need to build your self-confidence, this, that, and the other. And so with that, well, I should have appreciated the advice. It actually made me angry. So, I just reached out on the website and I interacted with Maureen and then eventually Larry, and they're like, hey, do you want to be on the board? I'm like, okay, great, sure, why not? I don't have, I have a great career. I take care of myself. I'm extremely independent. I have my own home, and I play tennis quite a bit, and I just never thought that, I would be on a board of the school I loved, but that actually happened, and worked with the vice chair of the board and the actual secretary of the board, and they, boarded me on, and it's been great. And then Ken Graham, Larry, and Vince, in I think the October timeframe of last year, so I got on the board on February 2020, right before COVID. So October rolls around, and three men were like, hey, we've been thinking about this, and Ken was looking to transition out as chair, and said, hey, would you like to consider being the chair of the board? I was making faces on Zoom. I literally was, and like me, I haven't been on the board very long, but they all said, you've been really interacting well, contributing well, and so forth, and would think that you would be a good chair of the board. And so I took a little bit of thought of it and said, yes, I would like to do that. And, I've really appreciated it. Larry has me on speed dial, and it's been great. It's been challenging. I'm learning a lot, but I'm also taking what I've learned from the school when I was here, and also from my career, to really kind of round out what we need to do as an institution. And it's been a great learning process for me. So I'll end kind of there, but I also just want to say that, life's a journey. I've had my ups and downs, and it's, I would say my 4 years have been great at Andrews, but life is a journey. Being an adult is even more challenging. Sometimes it can be great, sometimes it can not be so great, but just know that, being at Andrews is one of those things. At the Andrews Osborne Academy is one of those places that will give you that foundation to be what you want to be as you move through your life path. Thank you.